There was a time, not so long ago, when I carried within me a meticulously rendered blueprint of desire, a veritable architectural drawing of the soul I believed myself destined to encounter. I had, in my mind's eye and heart's anticipation, definitively figured it all out, sketching with unwavering conviction the precise contours of the person I wished to welcome into my life. Every quality, every characteristic, every nuanced facet of personality was catalogued and cross-referenced, forming a rigid and uncompromising ideal. And truth be told, when I first encountered you, you did not, by any stretch of the imagination, conform to that carefully curated image. You simply didn't fit, not in the slightest. You were, to my then limited perception, an anomaly, an outlier, a deviation from the perfectly envisioned path I had charted for myself. Yet, as fate, or perhaps some unseen, benevolent force, would have it, a crack appeared in the edifice of my certainty. It was then that you, with a gentle grace that belied its profound impact, afforded me a glimpse into a dimension of your being I had never, in my wildest imaginings, anticipated. You revealed a side of yourself, an authentic, unfiltered essence, that resonated with an unfamiliar but undeniable truth, something I had never even known to expect. In that pivotal moment, the meticulously constructed framework of my expectations, all the rigid concepts I held about my type, simply disintegrated. They ceased to hold any relevance, crumbling into dust as the sheer force of your unexpected beauty asserted itself. It was as if the universe itself conspired to show me that the parameters I had so diligently defined were, in fact, incredibly narrow, preventing me from perceiving a far vaster, more profound reality. All my preconceived notions about love and partnership, about compatibility and destiny, dissolved in the radiant light of who you truly are. There exists one particular memory, etched with startling clarity into the very fabric of my being, when you executed an act of such disarming and utterly unexpected kindness, or perhaps displayed a vulnerability so profound that it instantly reconfigured the entire landscape of my perception. It was a singular instance, perhaps seemingly small to an outsider, but within me, it ignited a profound recalibration. That moment, imbued with an almost spiritual significance, served as an instantaneous catalyst, causing me to see you not just through new eyes, but through a newly awakened heart. A paradigm shift occurred, swift and absolute, and in its wake, I was struck by a breathtaking revelation. You were, with every fiber of your being, everything that my soul had been unknowingly yearning for, every unmet longing, every unspoken desire, the answer to a prayer I hadn't even consciously articulated. It was as if a long-dormant part of me stirred to life, recognizing its missing piece, understanding, for the first time, the true, unacknowledged depths of its own search. Initially, I harbored a steadfast conviction that our inherent differences were insurmountable, that the chasm between our individual worlds was simply too wide to bridge. I was, perhaps foolishly, tethered to a romanticized vision of how a connection should manifest, a seamless, effortless confluence of similar minds and shared interests, a storybook click that announces itself with immediate recognition. Yet, as our interactions deepened, and the superficial layers of first impressions began to peel away, you unveiled a profound capacity for understanding me, not merely on the surface, but reaching into the very core of my being. You got me in a way I had never previously experienced, an empathetic attunement that transcended mere words. It was a sacred understanding, a meeting of spirits, and in that incandescent moment of profound recognition, everything within me shifted. The rigid walls of my preconceptions crumbled, giving way to an expansive and luminous acceptance. For so long, you resided firmly outside the perimeter of my interest, an individual whose path, I believed, would never meaningfully intersect with my own. You seemed to exist in a different orbit, a distinct constellation in the vastness of human experience. And yet, here I stand, irrevocably, utterly, and undeniably drawn into the magnetic field of your presence. There is a facet of you that exudes an almost otherworldly pull, a quality that is at once intensely captivating and continuously surprising. It's a paradox, a delightful contradiction that defies logic and ignites a deeper, more primal attraction. I honestly never conceived that I would ever experience such profound sentiments for someone like you, someone who initially appeared to defy all my carefully constructed parameters of appeal. But then, in an act of breathtaking courage and trust, you gradually, authentically, began to open up the innermost chambers of your being to me. In doing so, you unveiled a breathtaking depth of character, a vast, intricate landscape of thoughts, feelings, and experiences that completely disarmed me, catching me utterly off guard and rendering all my previous judgments meaningless. Now, with a sincerity that resonates through every fiber of my existence, I confess that the very notion of a life unadorned by your presence is utterly inconceivable. You have become an indispensable cornerstone of my world, an integral thread woven into the very tapestry of my days. It wasn't, as one might assume, your outward appearance or any other readily apparent, superficial quality that initially caused me to hesitate, to pause at the threshold of our connection. Rather, my initial misjudgment stemmed from a blindness to the profound currents flowing beneath your surface. It was, instead, the hidden strength that you possess, an unwavering fortitude that manifests not in overt displays but in quiet resilience. It was the quiet passion that burns within you, a gentle yet fiercely illuminating flame that fuels your pursuits and defines your spirit. These are the qualities that, with an irresistible, gravitational pull, drew me inexorably closer, compelling me to acknowledge the profound error of my initial assessment. In those moments of revelation, I realized, with startling clarity, that I had been fundamentally, profoundly, and unequivocally wrong about everything I thought I knew this entire time. I had, you see, diligently maintained a mental checklist, a compendium of desirable attributes, each neatly itemized, representing the quintessential qualities I was convinced I desired in a partner. This list was my compass, my guide, my arbiter of worthiness. But the more intimately I came to know the authentic, unvarnished version of you, the real you, stripped of any preconceived notions, the more that meticulously constructed list revealed itself to be utterly superfluous, fundamentally pointless. You have, by the sheer force of your unique and undeniable essence, become the singular exception to every single doctrine I thought I knew about what my heart genuinely desired. You have, with a beautiful and transformative force, completely shattered every assumption I had ever harbored about love, about attraction, about compatibility, about destiny, precisely when I truly allowed myself the grace of knowing you. Now, in the stark clarity of this present understanding, I am frankly astounded, unable to comprehend the profound blindness that once obscured my vision to the breathtaking beauty that was undeniably, vibrantly, right there in front of me all along. It was a profound myopia of the heart, cured only by your luminous presence. There exists within you a side of yourself that I, in my former state of naive conviction, was simply not prepared to encounter. It was a facet of your being that, upon its unveiling, entirely reconfigured the very definition of what I thought I desired, what I thought I needed, what I thought love would look like. You, with a profound and unsolicited generosity, illuminated for me a kind of love I had not only failed to seek but had not even possessed the conceptual framework to imagine. My initial perception of you was far from this truth. I simply did not see you in that transformative light. However, as the ceaseless river of time flowed onward, and as our shared moments accumulated, the myriad little things you do, the countless, often subtle, expressions of your authentic self, coupled with the profound and unwavering way you care, began a slow, yet inexorable, metamorphosis within me. These consistent, gentle revelations incrementally altered the very lens through which I perceived not only you, but indeed everything around me. Now, in the luminous clarity of this present moment, illuminated by your unique radiance, you are, quite simply, all I can see. Every other possibility has faded, eclipsed by your undeniable presence. I had always held a steadfast conviction that there was a very specific prototype of person with whom my life's narrative would ultimately intertwine. This conviction was deeply ingrained, almost an article of faith. Yet, when you, with an astonishing and deeply touching vulnerability, allowed me to witness that softer, more tender, more human, and profoundly vulnerable part of yourself, every single presupposition I had ever clung to, every certainty I had painstakingly constructed, simply dissolved into the ether. It went out the window, leaving behind a vast, open space in my understanding. You were not, by any conventional metric or prior aspiration, what I was actively seeking. You weren't even remotely close to the ideal I had fabricated. But then, there was that one, indelible moment, a fleeting instance that etched itself into the very core of my memory, when you smiled. It wasn't just any smile, it was a smile imbued with a profound depth, accompanied by a look in your eyes that possessed an almost mystical allure, a gaze that resonated with an unspoken language and, once seen, became utterly impossible to dislodge from my thoughts. And just like that, in the breathtaking simplicity of that singular, transformative moment, you became the undisputed, sole occupant of my every waking thought, the very essence of my consideration. I had, with an almost comical certainty, assumed I possessed a comprehensive understanding of your character, believing I had you entirely figured out. Yet, when you graciously unveiled those hidden depths within you, that intricate tapestry of experience and wisdom that lay beneath the surface, when you allowed me to truly witness the boundless wellspring of your kindness, and the formidable, unwavering manifestation of how strong you truly are, it didn't just alter my perspective, it literally flipped my whole world upside down. The very foundation of my reality was irrevocably rearranged. You possessed an unparalleled capacity to surprise me in ways I never expected, each revelation a delightful, profound disruption to my preconceived notions. I genuinely believed, completely disinclined to pursue a connection with someone like you, someone who existed outside my narrowly defined preferences. But that conviction held true only before the moment I encountered the side of you that spoke straight to my soul, an authentic resonance that bypassed all logic and ignited a profound, visceral understanding. It was a connection that transcended the superficial, reaching into the very core of my spiritual being. I confess, I was entrenched in a state of stubborn resistance, stubbornly clinging to a meticulously fashioned archetype of who I believed was unequivocally right for me. This rigid adherence to an idealized image acted as an impenetrable fortress, guarding my heart against any deviation from its self-imposed parameters. Then, with a gentle, persistent grace that only you could embody, you emerged, not as a battering ram, but as a steady, unwavering presence. You began, incrementally and with an almost divine patience, slowly breaking down those walls that I had so diligently erected around my heart and mind. Each interaction, each shared vulnerability, each quiet moment of understanding served as a tiny, yet powerful, chisel, eroding the formidable barriers until, finally, in a moment of pure, unadulterated clarity, I saw you, not as a projection of my desires, but for who you really are. And from that transformative instant onward, a revelation that felt akin to a spiritual awakening, I have never once looked back. My gaze has been fixed, irrevocably, on the beautiful, authentic reality of you. I genuinely had no inkling, no faintest premonition, that concealed behind the outward presentation you offered, behind the facade that initially defined you in my perception, lay an individual who possessed the extraordinary capacity to touch my heart in a way I had never even imagined possible. It was an unexpected, profound, and utterly transformative connection. Now, Illuminated by the radiant truth of our bond, I grasp with an undeniable clarity that the concept of type, that antiquated, limiting framework of preconceived notions, simply doesn't matter when it comes to you. You have transcended such trivial classifications, proving that the heart's true resonance operates on a far more profound and mysterious frequency. I had always believed I would never fall for someone like you, someone who deviated so drastically from my carefully constructed romantic ideal. But then, as I witnessed the boundless wellspring of your compassion, as I experienced the profound validation of how well you truly listen, absorbing not just my words but the unspoken nuances of my soul, and as I observed with all the steadfast way you handle life's tough moments, navigating adversity with an inherent strength and grace, my heart, once guarded and resolute, simply couldn't resist anymore. It surrendered completely, overwhelmed by the undeniable power of your genuine spirit. You were, beyond any shadow of a doubt, not the specific kind of person I had ever envisioned myself falling for, not the romantic lead in the carefully scripted drama of my life. But then, with an almost magical unveiling, you revealed a dimension of your being that, in its startling authenticity, completely changed what I thought love looked like. My very definition of affection, partnership, and profound connection underwent a radical and irreversible transformation. I honestly did not believe I possessed the capacity to be drawn to someone like you, someone who existed so firmly outside the confines of my established preferences. However, with each passing moment, as I peeled back the layers and immersed myself more deeply in the truth of who you really are, witnessing your unwavering honesty, your breathtaking vulnerability, the genuine core of your being, the more emphatically I realized, with a clarity that felt divinely inspired, how perfect you are for me. It was a realization that blossomed not from intellectual calculation, but from the deep, undeniable knowing of my soul. I was, with a certainty bordering on stubborn conviction, absolutely sure that you were not the right person for me, that our paths were destined to diverge rather than intertwine. Yet, in a moment of profound grace, you revealed a side of you that was so genuine, so utterly devoid of pretense, so deeply caring in a way that resonated with the purest forms of empathy and selfless concern, that I found myself disarmed, my defenses crumbling. In that sacred unveiling, I had no choice but to fall for you. It was an involuntary surrender to a truth too potent to deny, an undeniable gravitational pull towards the profound authenticity you embody. It truly is remarkable, isn't it, how we convince ourselves we possess an infallible understanding of our desires, believing we know with absolute precision exactly what you want, until, with a breathtakingly unpredictable elegance, someone enters our lives and, not gently, but with a vibrant, transformative force, turns your whole world upside down. And that, unequivocally, is precisely what you did, executing this profound upheaval in the most extraordinarily beautiful, the most unexpectedly perfect, the best possible way. I had always clung to the notion that the identity of my destined companion would be apparent from the very outset, a clear, unmistakable signpost marking the beginning of our journey. Yet, you, with the profound wisdom inherent in your unexpected arrival, imparted a lesson far more nuanced and deeply resonant, that sometimes, indeed often, the right person is the one you least expect. They arrive not heralded by fanfares of familiarity, but by the quiet unfolding of an unfamiliar, yet utterly compelling, presence. I used to subscribe to the belief that you simply weren't my type, a categorization that, in retrospect, appears laughably superficial. But once I bore witness to the boundless generosity and beautiful humility of how selfless you could be, once I comprehended the formidable combination of how strong yet gentle you were, a rare and exquisite blend of power and tenderness, I arrived at an undeniable truth: you were, with an astonishing precision, exactly what I needed. Not merely desired, but fundamentally required, a missing piece to my soul's own complex puzzle. There was an initial period of profound internal resistance, a hesitant reluctance to fully acknowledge, let alone openly admit, the burgeoning truth that was taking root within me. I wasn't ready to concede to the radical reordering of my understanding. But the more I delved into the intricacies of who you really are, the more I absorbed the multifaceted brilliance of your character, the more I came to understand the true, unwavering essence of your spirit, the more emphatically I realized that you were, in a destiny-altering revelation, always the one I was waiting for. It was as if your presence finally awoke a dormant knowing within me, a recognition of a future that had been preordained. I genuinely did not believe, for a considerable span of time, that you were the one for me, that our individual destinies were meant to converge into a shared narrative. But then, as I witnessed the quiet majesty of your kindness, the unshakable bedrock of your strength, the effortless charm of your sense of humor, a realization dawned upon me, stark and irrefutable. I had been so profoundly, so unequivocally, wrong. Now, in the aftermath of that transformative awakening, the very notion of picturing anyone else in your place is utterly impossible. My mind, my heart, my future are inextricably linked to you.